Bienvenidos a Vox Terra. Today, let me start with a press release from the Natural Resources Defense Council. The Biden administration approved a massive expansion of oil drilling in Alaska, giving ConocoPhillips permission to begin its Willow project in the state's western Arctic. The NRDC refers to this as a carbon bomb, emboldening an industry, quote, hell-bent on destroying the planet, and locks in decades of more dependency on oil and fossil fuels at a time when we should be scaling back rapidly. And they point out that within America's heartland, there's a manufacturing revolution being driven by, or manufacturing renaissance being driven by, clean energy. The real story here is a story of capitulation or appeasement to one of the most powerful industries on our planet, the undercutting of one of the strongest arguments for voting Democrat, that's the environment. And I get it if you're skeptical about that, but they really are more responsive to environmental groups. And I've shown you in the past, the Republican Party is getting the lion's share of fossil fuel funding. It shows a president typical of what the true left calls corporate Democrats, unable or unwilling to articulate the strongest case for our environment in the way that a President Bernie Sanders could have and I believe would have done. And this, what I'm calling appeasement, will, I believe, backfire both politically and environmentally. So let's just review some of the pressure that Biden's been under to expand oil and gas production. Here's a political cartoon, so-called, depicting this great time of low gas prices under Trump, and now Biden promoting his Green New Deal, strangling the American at the pump. Well, first of all, that Green New Deal wasn't really President Biden's. That was championed by Sanders and that wing of the Democratic Party. Biden only came up with his Build Back Better, I believe, largely in response to that. Here's a meme. Hate the gas price? You voted for it, with a smiling Joe Biden and a thought bubble or a quote coming out, I'm an idiot, and then a MAGA at the bottom. An unknowingly, I believe unknowingly ironic meme, depending who made it, depicting an ExxonMobil gas station, a kid sticking his head out the window saying me looking for low gas prices, and a person looking high on marijuana representing high prices. Well, I call that unknowingly ironic because ExxonMobil, if you look at those journalistic websites are interested in exposing the money behind climate denial, ExxonMobil has been cited time and time again as a big sponsor of climate change denial and now inaction or blocking the transition to renewables by the likes of like DeSmog, Greenpeace, Unearthed. These memes and all this clamor to drill, baby, drill, which is what we heard from Sarah Palin years ago, ignore the stranglehold this industry has on our political system and has had over my whole lifetime. They ignore the ignored reports on how we could get to a 100% clean energy grid, and I've shared you citations to that from Scientific American and more in the past. They ignore decades of calls for less energy consumption, more efficient appliances, more efficient vehicles, smaller vehicles. They ignore how this auto industry, in cahoots in a sense with the fossil fuel industry, really encouraged Americans to start driving bigger, more gas-consuming vehicles. Well, whether these memes, these calls, these cartoons are coming from just regular folks like you and I, or not, they flow, I believe, from what is often called the denial industry, meaning these organizations, these think tanks that get this funding or have in the past from what I call the reckless elements within the fossil fuel petrochemical industry. And one of those I want to share with you as an example, cited often by a group called DeSmog, who is a great journalistic website ignored by the mainstream media largely, who really dig into this type of story, a story they could get sued on, by the way. One of the organizations they often cite is a group called the Heartland Institute. But what a charming name, Heartland. So DeSmog showed that when they did disclose funding, but they no longer do, ExxonMobil was a funder. Now they found out later, back in 2019, if I remember correctly, that Murray Energy was another funder, but they only found that out because of a bankruptcy filing on the part of Murray Energy, if I remember that story correctly. But what I'm trying to tell you is a lot of people think this is their idea, or they thought of it themselves, or hearing it somewhere, but really it's coming from these sources. But that money trail is so hard to pin down, and so little of the media is interested in doing that. Why? Because they themselves are connected to the industry. And while I saw the Heartland Institute roast Joe Biden before his big appeasement, They're still roasting him now after and in the wake because you know what? Nothing is good enough for them. So here they call Biden's new Alaska drilling policy economic self-mutilation. The environmental left is angry at Biden, but the president actually closed off a lot more resources than he opened. The media is in the bag for the environmental crazies. We have more oil than Saudi Arabia. We have more oil than Russia. Green energy makes us more dependent on rare earth minerals controlled by China. Energy security. Just like I've been telling you, focus on the foreign adversary creates cover for the established business interests at home, the ones that are really controlling our system. To show you this isn't just about a temporary transition while we go towards green energy, like some people claim, another article they sponsor at their website, Green Imperialism, How the West Climate Agenda Keeps Developing Countries Poor, by Vijay Jayaraj. Isn't that amazing? So you're telling the Americans, hey, competition from China, man, Russia, and you're telling other countries, the West, get it playing each side against each other. Divide and conquer on the global scale. To show you they're not going to like Biden no matter what, Biden, as colleges go woke, dumb down curricula, and raise tuition fees, pickpocket in chief Joe Biden wants you to foot the bill. They call him pickpocket in chief, even though he just gave a major appeasement. Now, by the way, I have share some criticisms of what people call woke, but you know what? You need to be specific in your criticisms because what happens when you hide behind this big grand label of woke or left or liberal or whatever you want to label somebody, other hidden agendas sneak in. Just be specific what you're upset with and separate the disinformation from the actual disagreement. They even attack Biden on ESG and ERISA rules, claiming that these type of investments and disclosures are going to make it harder for people to retire. Well, what's the problem there? A lot of ESG at its heart is really divestment from fossil fuels. Do you get the pattern? And look, they even got the Don't Tread on Me snake at their website trying to say, hey, I'm with you, conservatives. It's a marketing ploy, amigo. Well, a lot of this pro-drilling, drill baby drill rhetoric, we hear it on Fox News. Well, Fox News has been shown by public citizens who also host these climate deniers coming from these think tanks. And specifically, I got a Media Matters citation for you showing that people from the Heartland Institute themselves were on Fox. All in the family. Well, I searched up ConocoPhillips and climate change denial, and an article I came up with for you there was by Center for American Progress. A report claiming that the remaining actual climate change deniers in the 117th Congress get money from fossil fuel interests. There they had a link to Open Secrets, a terrific website, listing ConocoPhillips as one of the congressional donors. Well, why? Why would Biden do this if he knows he's going to get attacked no matter what? Well, let's look at the history, or part of Biden's history going back to the Obama years. He was vice president there. Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State. President Obama called himself, he referred a lot to all of the above energy policy, talking about green energy and renewable energy. And yes, you look at Scientific American, he did a lot for that. But it was overshadowed, undercut by his support for fossil fuel interests as well. He became notorious for the one lifting the ban on U.S. oil exports, encouraging that industry. He also loved to promote his administration promotes small modular nuclear reactors, something many of us environmentalists are pretty unhappy with. And what was supposed to be one of his real keystone accomplishments, a cap and trade deal that would have really set us on the path towards limiting our carbon pollution, using market-friendly solutions. Well, that wasn't good enough for these reckless elements of the business community. And here I'm talking about what's called the Koch industry or the Koch brothers. Well, they helped fund the Tea Party and the Tea Party opposition to cap and trade, and they succeeded in killing this market-friendly solution. Appeasement didn't work. Obama's next big signature move was supposed to be getting us in that Paris climate agreement, and that was going to be carried out by his former Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton. And while Hillary Clinton did have some good in her environmental record and got endorsed by environmental groups like the NRDC again, I'll show you a citation for that, her environmental credits were all washed away by the fact that she promoted fracking globally within her State Department. That's exposed by Mother Jones. And I show you that site because, they're called a leftist news outlet, but they're like a true leftist news outlet. And people like to conflate liberal left. And I saw so many people claiming Hillary Clinton's this far left radical. Well, you got the left criticizing her, not super enthusiastic about her. And then Never Hillary people or Trumpers were throwing in my face online anyway, hey, Clinton supported fracking, so may as well vote for Trump, who the environmental movement all knew would be a lot worse for the environment. Backfire. So I always watch these frontline documentaries on the presidential candidates, and they portrayed Trump. If you'd watched it, I don't think you would have voted for Trump, but they portrayed Biden as a sort of, I hate to use the word empty suit, but as somebody who kind of goes with the flow. Except I do remember them saying he was somewhat grounded in what we might call a more hawkish, military stance, which we'd see darn well playing out today. And that, I would say, is, you're helping out the defense industry, another big, powerful industry. So when he's getting all this public pressure, his only response really is to appease, because that's what he knows. He doesn't know like Bernie would have done, and Bernie did on the campaign trail, and this is why so many media outlets were against Bernie. Bernie said, I'm going to paraphrase him, and I never got pushback from any conservative friend I talked to about this. He would, to paraphrase Bernie, our biggest problem politically in our country, worldwide really, is that we are dominated by these powerful business interests, not just our politics, but our media. And one of the biggest, most dangerous ones now is the fossil fuel petrochemical industry. And through that control of media is control of thinking. It's not just these think tanks and institutes. It's Fox News, but it's not just Fox News. It's what's called the so-called mainstream news media or liberal news media, ignoring climate change, ignoring the connection from these extreme unraveling weather events, unraveling climate and extreme weather events, ignoring it repeatedly, ignoring these money ties, choosing to instead, go after Donald Trump on maybe some culture war issue, but not the money trail. And it's not just the large media outlets like CNN or even some of my favorites like NPR. It then funnels down to YouTubers, influencers who they themselves are getting sponsored by these elements or these interests. I can show you Mother Jones articles showing how influencers talking about how great natural gas stoves are, money from the gas industry. And then just average folks repeating it because they heard someone else repeating it, and people feel smart if they're saying what they heard someone else saying. Whereas you got a show like mine saying what not many others are saying, and I never heard this before. So this is what we are dealing with, the undercutting of Biden's agenda, the undercutting of his legacy, and now him really leaving us environmental activists hanging here to defend his record against a Republican competitor who will be harsher on the environment, who will be more pro allowing those industries to behave in a reckless fashion. That's what history tells us. That's what the massive campaign contributions coming from the fossil fuel industry to the Republican Party tell us, I'm sorry to say. So the only way to combat this is not by appeasement. It is by conspiracy for conspiracy. You've got to show when people think they're smart by repeating fossil fuel industry propaganda, or really people trying to claim this is all some big plot to take freedom away. You got to show, no, amigo, the real conspiracy is all this money coming out of these reckless elements of the business community, because you will bog down fighting disinformation from real information, untangling half-truth from whole truth. And do not fall for the false promise that, hey, everything's under control. This is just a temporary transition. Because that money ConocoPhillips is going to make is going to go back into funding political campaigns, funding media, funding PR. Well, hey, I hope you found this helpful, informative, a bit entertaining. If you did, please make sure you're subscribed to my channel. Yeah, click the notification bell. You're liking, you're commenting. It'd be great to have another person join my 2 patrons at Patreon. This shows a heck of a lot of work, very time consuming, comes at a big opportunity cost to me. And as always, until next time, peace be with you.